It's not every day you can go to a show and see hundreds of people performing jokes, and it's only one person doing the jokes. Master impressionist Rich Little is in town at the Fallsview Casino for 3 shows. All right, we're here at the Fallsview with the master of impressions, Rich Little. What's it like being up in Canada again?
Great. I feel the same age as I did when I was in the States. Old, no.
The exchange rate didn't get you.
I brought my loonies and toonies with me, you know. But no, it's nice to be back in Canada. Really is. I've ties with Canada, belts and socks too, but a lot of ties. Yeah. Well, my first big break in the United States was the Judy Garland show, 1964, and Mel Torme, the singer, got me on that show, and I stayed down in the States and started to do a lot of variety shows and club dates after that, and left Canada. Got my green card and got in my Rambler and drove down to Hollywood.
Who was the, if you look back to when you first started doing impressions, who was the first one that you ever did?
The first movie star I ever did was Jimmy Stewart. Yeah, Jimmy was the first. I can remember seeing a movie called A Far Country, and I sat down at the dinner table with my folks, and I said to my mom, "Mom, I'd like a piece of apple pie." And that was the word that did it for Jimmy, pie. And then I found out that Jimmy's horse was called Pie.
Really?
Yeah.
I wish I had that kind of talent when telemarketers call my house. It must be fun if you ever get one calling you. You can just pick a voice.
Well, I did a thing called phonies years ago where I put little messages on a phone, you know, when nobody answers. And I did a lot of those, and people used to play them, you know. Jack Nicholson would say, "Hey, man, there's nobody available, you know. But don't ever call here again. You're really starting to piss me off," you know.
And now I want to talk about the roast, the Dean Martin roast. I remember I was a huge fan of Dean Martin when I was a kid. Yeah. You were involved in a lot of them. There's got to be a lot of great stories and a lot of great fun that you had.
Well, I was privileged to do 24 Dean Martin roasts, and I think the reason that I did so many was that I could imitate a lot of people on the panel. And if I could do 4 or 5 people that were sitting there, they would usually book me on a roast, you know. I would do a little George Burns, and then I'd look down the dais, and there was George Burns. Or I'd see Jack Benny over here, or Jimmy Stewart sitting on the end, you know. And that was the hook, you know. For me to get on the roast was to imitate the people on the dais. But it was great fun to do them, but a lot of pressure because you're working in front of, the best actors and the best comedians in the business and people you idolize as a kid, you know. I'm suddenly working with my idols, you know. So there was a lot of pressure, and you had to concentrate and just do the best you could because it could throw you, you know. Being amongst those greats could throw you.
And having to make fun of them.
And make fun of them and try to be funny, you know, in front of the world's greatest comedians. Me, a kid from Ottawa, trying to be funny. I'm not a comedian, you know.
And now you have your book that came out little by little, and there've got to be a lot of great stories in there. Is there a moment or an event or a person that you met that was the biggest thrill for you?
I think meeting Ronald Reagan was a great thrill for me. I did the first Reagan inauguration, and he loved my impression. I mean, he used to fall down on the floor, you know, once Nancy explained the jokes to him. But he'd always say, "You know, Rich, you do me better than I do. So I think when I step down as president, you should take over and just talk in my voice and become president."
If Johnny were here today, what would he say about the weather?
What would you say about what?
Possibly the weather. Is it hot? Is it cold? How would Johnny think about the forecast today?
It was so cold. I was down in Niagara Falls, and it was so cold. an exhibitionist came up to me and had to describe himself to me. Now that's cold.
Reporting for The Source, I'm Bob, man of 1,000 nicknames, Romeo.